Welcome on the Cosmic Atom. Do you believe you understand your own sexuality? You think you can pinpoint what gives you pleasure? What gives you power? What causes you to feel alive? But what if I told you that the act of orgasm is gradually draining the life energy from your spirit, leaving you empty and feeble, a shell of the man you might be? Perhaps you have never considered this, but think about it now. How often have you felt weirdly empty after a moment of pleasure? How many times have you promised yourself, only one more time, only to go back into the same routine? Days, even hours later. You refer to this as the shadow, the part of yourself you refuse to acknowledge that functions under your awareness, leading you towards self-destruction while rationalizing it as normal or healthy. The most terrifying aspect is that you often don't know you're imprisoned in this game. You believe you're meeting a need, reducing stress, or experiencing one of life's joys. Meanwhile, you are sinking into a psychic field that is eroding your vitality, taking your desire, and trapping you in the lowest form of life as the world passes you by. It's not only about pleasure. Jung made it obvious that what kills the contemporary man is not the act itself, but rather what it signifies. A full surrender to instant satisfaction, resulting in an incapacity to direct critical energy toward greater goals. You're not just releasing stress, you're also unleashing your strength and creativity. You're a vital force. Jung defined libido as the psychological force that drives all significant success and progress. The price you pay is far more than you think. With each frenzied search of climax, you give up a portion of your potential. Your thinking becomes fuzzy. Your will diminishes. Your capacity to tackle life's obstacles decreases. And for what? A few seconds of pleasure that takes you right back to where you began. Or worst, even more empty. Even hungry for something you can't identify. Have you ever observed how some guys seem to have nearly mystical influence over their surroundings? Without saying anything, they compel respect. They attain their ambitions. They establish meaningful empires. Imagine if you had that same ability and stopped responding to every desire. What would happen if you choose confinement over release, control over slavery? That's where the point is. When you quit being constantly responsive to your own instincts, when you cease releasing your essential energy at every chance, something shifts inside you. Power accumulates. A presence increases. People perceive it. They may not understand what it is, but they can feel it. And those who squandered their strength on fleeting pleasure stare at you, perplexed, wondering what secret you hold. Carl Jung once observed that anything that frustrates us about others might help us understand ourselves better. Now consider this. When you see a guy who has conquered himself, who exudes vigor and purpose, and isn't always looking for respite, don't you feel something? Isn't there a part of you that knows he's found something you haven't? This says more about you than about him. It mostly exposes how much you are still influenced by influences you do not comprehend. You've been trained to constantly indulge, to react immediately to desires, and to give in to every instinct. You have been conditioned from infancy to think that your value is determined by consumption, pleasure, and quick fulfillment. But here's a fact you may not have heard before. Overwhelming availability to your own impulses is not freedom. It's a prison. And as long as you believe that you must use your energy at every chance, you will stay weak, depleted, and forgotten as your youth goes. Do you understand why? Because being constantly responsive to your desires makes you predictable. Everything predictable becomes a tool. Your own biology becomes a weapon against you, and you deliberately assist in your own demise. Carl Jung did not see the human mind as an automated mechanism that responds to stimuli with no repercussions for him. Our mind functions like an energy system, with each thought, emotion, and action using a portion of that energy. The key is whether you choose where your energy flows or let your most primal desires to make the decision for you. Every time you respond impulsively to sexual stimulus, you waste mental energy by devouring pictures of other people's bodies for hours on end. When you participate in the cycle of stimulation and release in order to satisfy a fundamental want, you only get temporary respite. You are depleting your inner power on things that do not feed you. And Jung was clear that anything you oppose continues. The more you give in to these patterns, the stronger they develop, eventually dominating your whole life. People who are spiritually and emotionally tired are not inherently weak. They're misplaced. And do you know what happens to someone who is always exhausted? They become vulnerable. When you're vulnerable, you become an easy target. Those who comprehend the unconscious forces inside humans may detect this vulnerability. They observe that you do not know how to manage your energy, that you respond to every stimulus, and that you're always looking for the next source of pleasure. Jung defined a healthy mentality as one that understands how to maintain energy inside the system. This includes understanding how to say no to desires without shame and how to control sexual energy without feeling deprived. Understanding how to perceive impulses without acting. Because genuine power does not provide quick satisfaction. It is about deciding when and how to express your life energy. How many times have you lost attention due to sexual thoughts? How many times have you squandered hours that might have been spent creating, developing, or growing for a few seconds of comfort that just led you back to where you started? This is energy drained without return. You are perpetuating patterns that persist only because you continue on feeding them. Psychic energy resembles a force field. When properly guarded, it generates presence. You enter a room and demand respect without saying anything. However, if you're not well controlled and are continually released via obsessive sexual release, you'll become invisible, reactive, and vulnerable. The world has no pity for people who relinquish their authority so cheaply. Begin monitoring your own triggers. What causes you to seek for that relief? What causes you to lose your center? What feelings are you avoiding by sexual discharge? These are the precise locations where your energy leaves, and here is where you must work. Not to become cold or repressed, but to choose. To be master of your own life energy. You believe you are in charge. You assume that your sexual activities are deliberate decisions, but the reality is much worse. The majority of your reactions to sexual stimuli are pre-programmed, and people who generate these stimuli are well aware of this. They do not need to coerce you. They just press the buttons you have left exposed, and you always respond. Carl Jung described this projection as the psychological process by which unconscious factors govern your conduct. However, few people are aware of the flip side of this phenomena. While billion-dollar corporations use sexualized imagery to get your attention, you become the recipient of these projections. And the more you respond to these impulses, the more vulnerable you become to manipulation. You know those instances when you find yourself eating sexual stuff even if you didn't intend to, or when you feel compelled to visit particular websites despite your promises to yourself not to. When you're anxious, bored, or lonely, you have a tendency to seek relief. None of this happens by coincidence. These aren't partnerships with oneself. They are partnerships based on unconscious tendencies, and you serve as their vehicle. And why are you complying? Because you're terrified of discomfort, afraid of experiencing the true feelings that motivate you to seek relief. Afraid of the stillness that occurs when you do not quickly satisfy every need. The most successful manipulation does not involve force. It occurs via the quiet voice of yearning. When you sense the desire for release. I need relief. Need to go away, even if it kills you within. Here is the key point. The urge does not have to dominate you consciously. It merely requires you to continue responding in the same manner. However, when you stop responding, the game crashes. When you begin saying no, responding with containment, when you withdraw your attention from stimuli rather than feeding them, the projections begin to collapse. Sexual compulsions grasp on you lessons. This clears your thoughts, boosts your energy, and strengthens your willpower. However, this transformation disturbs individuals, particularly those who benefit from your obsessive behavior. Your increased strength poses a problem since it implies you can no longer be controlled by fundamental urges. Your sexual energy confinement shows the noise. Jung said that they do not want you to hear the voice of your genuine self, which is calling you to a life of significance rather than fleeting pleasure. We become enlightened not by visualizing images of light, but by bringing darkness to consciousness. When you remove your energies from obsessive sexual practices and stop fueling the cycle, your shadow emerges. All the feelings, wants, and realities you've been evading with sexual discharge are overwhelming. At first, for those who have always turned to sexuality as an escape. But how about you? Are you prepared to face with the discomfort of containment? Are you prepared to experience the feelings that arise when you do not seek instant relief? Are you prepared to deal with the withdrawal symptoms that accompany the cessation of these behaviors? Because it is exactly in that battle that a new kind of power emerges. The current environment is loud, hypersexualized, and always provoking. Everyone wants instant pleasure, to react fast to every need, to flee from every unpleasant emotion, even if it means sacrificing their energy. But there's a force that few understand and even fewer master: the power of containment. This is not the confinement of suppression or denial, but the purposeful, strategic, ruthlessly lucid containment of sexual energy. Jung regarded confinement not as a vacuum, but as a fruitful place for personal development. When you stop reacting to sexual energy, you may start to see what's driving these patterns. And by watching, you may see what was before undetected. Emotional triggers, unconscious anxieties, and efforts to relieve psychological distress. Containment provides for clarity, which is harmful for people who want to dominate you via your biology. Have you noticed how the market understands just how to arouse your sexual desires? Have you noticed how accurately they can catch your attention using these simple drives? It isn't because they miss you. It's because your responsiveness allows them to dominate your attention, your time, your whole life power. During your discharge, they take your clicks, views, and vital life energy, converting it into profit as you get weaker. True confinement does not mean the lack of sexuality. It is the command of one's own energies. It is the resistance to be drawn down by predetermined stimuli. It is a deliberate decision not to participate in the draining of your own power. According to Jung, individuation, or the process of becoming who you actually are, demands this distance because only in confinement can you listen to yourself without interruption from the outside world. But don't be tricked. Containment comes at a price. It will disconnect you from the simple pleasures that most people pursue without thought. It will make you unfathomable to those who continue to be slaves to all desires. It will make you seem different, controlled, maybe even odd. But all of this is a response from individuals who never sought to learn self-control, just self-indulgence. Here's the brutal reality. The more you acquire this ability to contain, the more selective you are with your energy, because you recognize that each release is an energy investment, and not every urge warrants access to your life force. Sometimes confinement may not imply deprivation. It is about sovereignty. It is pointless to try to grasp everything logically. If In actuality, you continue to give in to every sexual need that comes, engaging in energy drains that exist only because you persist on feeding them. Awareness without action is just another sort of self-deception. True transformation occurs when you make a determined decision to be selective with your own life energy. This demands discipline. Conscious confinement does not imply being suppressed, scared, or humiliated. It is about no longer having access to every trigger, impulse, or program meant to empty you. It's about gaining control of your own energy, power, and future. And it begins with little steps, such as not responding instantly to sexual cues and breathing before reacting, leaving a website before becoming drawn into the loop, turning off electronics without guilt. Not today, saying that I prioritize my strength above fleeting pleasure. But this is the most crucial element. You do not have to justify your confinement. You do not need to justify your decision. You owe nothing to anybody but your finest self. Carl Jung realized that every step of individuation involves letting go, but not hedonism, the holy release of what drains you. A period of inner reconstruction during which you relearned how to direct your energy without distraction from the outside world, where you recreate your identity from your own center of power rather than via consumption. Do you want to discover an effective way to measure your growth? Observe what happens as you become more confined. Notice how your mind clears, how your energy grows, how your presence strengthens. Observe who attempts to drag you back into previous habits. When you quit engaging in your own demise, this does not imply that you are incorrect. They are signs that you have started to release yourself. Initially, being confined is unpleasant. You will have desires. You will believe you're being denied. You'll hear that you're too harsh on yourself. However, this is part of the rehabilitation process. You've been trained throughout your life to use your power whenever possible. It is normal for people to feel uncomfortable when things change. Conscious confinement is the basis for self-determination. Saying no to compulsive release is saying yes to your future self. When you break the cycle of stimulation and discharge, you reinforce that your development is more important than temporary pleasure. And when you stop justifying your decisions, you start to get respect, even if it's only for yourself. But not everyone is prepared for this level of power. Your confinement will reveal how others stay slaves to their own desires. It will demonstrate how much they rely on group acceptance to make their conduct seem acceptable. And it is at this point that the separation occurs, as does the development, power, and awakening to who you might have always been if you hadn't been emptying your life energy. When you stop giving in to every sexual instinct, something important happens. The pain begins with a strain that seems to scream inside you. You're wondering whether you've done the right thing. If you're being overly harsh on yourself or suppressing something important. However, with time, this tension changes. It starts to energize you, strengthening and building you. Then comes power, but not the capacity to dominate. It's the power of presence, your own presence, fully charged. The power of someone who no longer compromises himself for fleeting pleasures. And in that area where there was previously compulsion, clarity comes. Where there was once brain fog, sharpness enters. And where there was once weakness, a new sort of strength enters. The strength of being full inside yourself. According to Carl Jung, the process of individuation involves withdrawing energy from unconscious patterns. That you cease feeling the things that bring you down. You can stroll alone for a bit if required. That is precisely what you are doing when you decide to control your sexual energy. You do not reject your sexuality. You're restoring it to its rightful position in a healthy mentality. This is the moment at which you transition from reactor to creator. You stop being influenced by programming and start to create your world from inside. The impulses that formerly ruled you demonstrate that they never possessed you. They merely borrowed your strength because of your unconscious participation. And now that you no longer match the stereotype of the easily misled consumer, you realize who you really are. You will lose little joys, but you will gain enduring strength. You will detach yourself from thoughtless behaviors. However, you will rediscover your inner strength. You will change. However, you will eventually become entire. Because once you're no longer accessible for unconscious draining, you become valued, rare, and powerful in ways that few contemporary men comprehend. Don't be tricked. This is a rebirth, a new beginning, the start of a life in which you're no longer accessible for energy depletion or manipulation of motion via fundamental, draining urges disguised as pleasure. Now you only accept what enhances your power, clarity, and completeness. And if you've gotten this far, it's because some part of you already understands this fact. A portion of you has already realized that pleasure means nothing if that requires you to give up your power. Now, tell me in the comments whether you're willing to be different, misunderstood, or even ridiculed in the service of regaining your life energy. Are you prepared to pay the price to become the guy you know you can be? If this message struck you in the comments, I will pick my power. Let's see how many people are prepared for this awakening. Don't forget to watch the following video. It's important, much more than you can imagine. We'll look at particular techniques for directing your stored energy into being the man you were destined to be. See you there. Dear viewers, your support through Super Chat and membership is the only source of income that keeps this channel running. If you want me to continue uploading valuable content without delays and to stay motivated in providing you with the best wisdom, I need your help. Every contribution, big or small, makes a huge difference. Feel free to donate and support Pure Wisdom so we can keep growing together. Your generosity keeps this journey alive. Thank you for being part of this amazing community. If you're enjoying the content on Pure Wisdom and find value in the messages we share, I encourage you to subscribe. Based on the latest analytics, 93.9% of viewers are watching without subscribing. By subscribing, you not only stay updated with new content, but also support the channel's growth, allowing us to continue spreading wisdom for the chosen ones. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an important message. Let's build this community together.